Welcome. I'm Rick Joyner, and I want to thank you for joining us for this special bulletin on current events. And today we're going to talk about some things you're really going to be not only shocked by, I believe, but you're going to wonder, could this really have happened in America?
Rick, we worked with my brother and some partners to build up some of the largest franchise companies in the United States for Dollar Rent-A-Car. Went on to sell Dollar to Chrysler Corporation, and through a period of transactions entered into getting both some GM stores, then moving to a GM franchise and Chrysler franchise in June of '05. Very underperforming. In fact, we actually picked up the store in Longmont, Colorado at the request of GMAC, which at that time was wholly owned by General Motors Corporation. It was close to bankruptcy, and we were building it up, making progress. On May 13th and May 14th of '09, the Chrysler and GM dealers across this country were notified by letter, not a phone call, not a meeting, simply notified by a Federal Express letter that we were terminated by Chrysler, 789 Chrysler dealers around the country, and over 1,000 immediate General Motors would receive wind-down agreements. When Chrysler gave us that notice, they, as it's been determined, they used a guillotine on us. They shut us down in 3 weeks. We had to get rid of our own vehicles. They wouldn't buy any parts back, anything of that nature. After congressional pressure, they started to help to get our cars moved around the country. But basically, they took all of our assets and left us with all of our liabilities. At a time to where, when you back up to the June of '09, that America was experiencing, and still is to a great degree, one of the greatest economic crises since the Great Depression, and may be calculated out even greater than that. They were, by their actions regarding dealers, they laid off and were responsible for the loss of thousands upon thousands of jobs.
But under our bankruptcies of the automotive industries, they went after and cut off dealerships who are no burden whatsoever. Matter of fact, they are only an asset to the automotive industry. There's no way for them to be a burden or a drain on the resources. Listen to this. Who benefited from the reorganization? The executives and the unions. The dealers who are out there on the front line risking everything to represent these automotive companies, to sell their products, to stand behind the warranties and everything else, they got lopped off by the thousands. And the evidence is very strong right now that the ones who were cut off were all of one political party. I was told, when I was first told it, I said, no, that cannot be. And I kept hearing it and hearing it. Well, listen, then just a couple of weeks ago, it came out, it was on the news sources. All but one of the hundreds that were cut off in Chrysler were Republicans, and the one who was not was not a Democrat. He was not a Republican either. He was an independent. This is appalling that something like this can happen. This is gangland politics. This is gangster politics going on in our country. Somebody's responsible for this. Somebody needs to be accountable for what has happened and how this has happened in our country.
It is important that people understand that the number one employer in the auto industry is not the union. It's not the executives at the GM and Chrysler headquarters. It's the dealers. It's those thousands of dealers across America who, as you said, have taken the financial risk, have put people to work and are employing the greatest number of people in America.
As we continue the story and as we as bankruptcy for the manufacturer continued to unfold, I went to New York because the administration moved it into the Southern District of New York. Very, very liberal situation there.
So the bankruptcy court was in the Southern District
of New York, and as I went there to go before Judge Gonzalez with a number of other Chrysler dealers to see and plead our case, we were told that in his court it was irrelevant. Myself and a number of other dealers, Chrysler dealers in this country, all over the country, came and shared their stories of performance, of being five-star dealers, the top performing dealers amongst Chrysler Corporation, being high performance of objectives, profitability. We totally countered the package and presentation of how it was to the American public that the manufacturer had to cut these dealers because A, they were poor performers, and B, in order to survive, the manufacturer had to cut these dealers to lower their cost. At one point, that one of the key Democratic leaders in the U.S. Congress asked for a special investigation by the Inspector General of the TARP funds. And so an investigation started. The Inspector General for SIGTARP, which is Special Inspector General for the TARP funds, found that the Treasury Department's decision to cut these dealers was based on a theory. There was no facts that the Treasury Department used.
No empirical data.
Exactly. This is where it becomes absolutely unconstitutional. While we're supposed to have the intent of the arbitration process was to have an independent process, they take what was my Jeep franchise and give it to the dealer across the street. They gave my marketing, gave all my contacts, gave everything. And it was happening all across the United States. All of the people that we had worked to build up,
it's customer base,
everything, and buy a franchise and spend millions of dollars on building everything that had been wiped out a year ago and had fought for almost 9 months to get federal legislation. Now the process was hijacked, because now how is the arbiter supposed to rule since it was
already been done?
It's basically they did the arbiter's process. And it happened across the country. But one of the key elements was when I went on in my final arbitration, in the first day and a half, General Motors said, listen, you can have everything. You can have your Pontiac was wound down across the country, but you can have your Buick and your GMC franchise back in 24 hours. But you have to do two things. You have to remodel and update your facility in a couple years, and Yale King, you're fired. Let me tell you exactly how it went down, verbatim. I looked at the GM executive, and I said, so I just want to get this right. I can have everything back in 24 hours, which there's supposed to be a 5-day arbitration, and obviously you've seen what's happened in the first day. So I can have everything back in 24 hours, but, so I understand this. And I looked at the GM executive and I said, so you're Steve Ratner, head of the Auto Task Force, and I'm Yale King as Rick Wagner, but I'm a private individual, and you just fired me. And nodded, and that's how I resigned.
Lost everything.
Lost everything.
You know, we've got to decide. This is just one area. It's happening in other places, and we want to give them health care. We want them to run health care. You know, we've got to stand up now, folks. Thank you for joining us.